Okay, we are also now live on YouTube and LinkedIn Live. And hello, everybody joining us there as well. We're just going to give everybody a minute so people have enough time to join, and then we're going to get started. Hi, Marco. Hi to Finland. Hi, Karm to India. Hi, Alexandre. Hello, hi there. Good to see you, everyone. Hi to Eric. Okay, we are now 2 minutes past the hour, and I know more people will be joining, but we are just going to get started. I'm going to start with some housekeeping. So first of all, welcome again, everybody, and thank you for joining. Welcome to everybody also that are joining in on YouTube and LinkedIn Live. First of all, I would like to emphasize that everybody is welcome in our community, and we are striving to create a safe and welcoming environment for all. And please follow our code of conduct when interacting with each other on this webinar and in the broader community as well. You can find our code of conduct on our website and on our wiki. All the LF Decentralized Trust webinars are held under the LF antitrust policy, which you can also find on our website. This meeting is being recorded, and you will be able to see the recording later on a YouTube channel as well as on our webinar library, along with the slides for download. So if you miss anything during this presentation, you can always return to the recording over there. Now, we encourage these webinars to be as interactive as possible, and the more interaction we get, the better experience for everyone. So I would encourage everyone to raise their hand if you have a question, and I will unmute you and you can speak up. You're also welcome to use the Q&A box and the chat box to ask your questions. For those of you joining us on LinkedIn Live and YouTube, please feel free to use the comment button as well, and I will relay these questions to our panelist, Doug, who will answer them. Now, without further ado, I'm happy to introduce Douglas Silva, who's the CTO at Cheesecake Labs, and will be running today's webinar. Doug, over to you.
Thank you so much, Thomas. It's a pleasure to be here today, and we are globally, right? People all over the world. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I will share my screen. So 1 second, please. Perfect. Let me know if any issues with the slides, but you all should now be seeing
looks
my
good.
presentation. Perfect. Thank you so much. Highlighting a few things that Thomas just mentioned, but feel free to ask any questions during the speech using the Q&A button or even on the chat. I'll be more than glad to answer those questions in the end. And thanks so much again for the invite. Thanks so much, Thomas, for the introduction. It's a real pleasure to be here again. We are doing a similar webinar last year on different topic, so it's a pleasure to be here again with you all. And the goal today is for us to expand. So last year we talked a little bit about bridging and cacti, and today we'll go broad and talk about interoperability as a whole, trying to understand and how can we connect and use interoperability into like real world Web3 projects and also with our tokenized assets. And to guide us through this conversation, the agenda will follow is the following. We should start talking about like why interoperability matters. Right? Why should we speak about these? I will give a brief overview on the ecosystem and what we have in terms of landscape for interoperability. We should speak about like use cases and interoperability patterns. I will showcase a few and we'll talk about like what kind of problems can we solve with interoperability. I will try to summarize all of that into some best practice while building interop systems. Then I'll wrap up and I can open the conversation for us to speak more open about any questions or something at the end. But before, first thing first, I'm Doug. I'm the CTO at Cheesecake Labs. Cheesecake Labs is a software design engineering company with headquarters in San Francisco and Brazil, where I am right now. We are for over a decade now helping startups and enterprise to accelerate digital innovation and deliver digital products. We start 12 years ago on the Web2 ecosystem, which is something that we still do also, like backend development, front-end development, mobile apps, web apps. But 6 years ago, give me or take, we also start supporting Web3 development. And in these plus 6 years of experience, we become a stellar integration partner, and we are also part of the LFDT as a LFDT member for over 2 years now, maybe even longer. And we are also a certified service provider for Hyperledger. In terms of tech stack that we support and we have worked with there are a few, and I name some here for us to start the conversation. So we of course deliver solutions for Hyperledger, mostly on Fabric and Bezel, but also Stellar, Cardano, EVM, such as Ethereum, Polygon, Base, and also Solana. In terms of what we have built a lot in this over 6 years of experience with Web3 projects or supporting companies delivering Web3 projects. We have done asset tokenization platform. We have done DeFi apps. We have done a lot of digital wallets, non-custodial, custodial. And we also do consulting. If you don't know how to leverage blockchain or how to use blockchain or how to architect a blockchain infrastructure, we can help you get that done. And of course, we also support and do dApps development, meaning smart contracts development on Solidity, Stellar, Cardano, and Solana, and some other networks. Let's get started with the basic, right? So why interoperability matters for us to be speaking about it today. I mentioned last year about this, that we have amazing blockchains out there, right? We have amazing networks, amazing communities with different ethos, with different goals, with different features, and they are solving very unique problems with DLT technology. But somehow those technologies and those communities, they are isolated one from the other. They live alone with their own ecosystem. It's very hard to connect those ecosystems. And as a consequence of all of that, we are living on a fragmented environment. And by fragmented, I mean a fragmented liquidity. Some chains, they have built incredible communities and they have a huge amount of capital inside of those ecosystems and chains. But that capital is locked. If we try to connect those, or if we try to flow the capital from one side to the other, good luck with that. It's something very, very hard to achieve. And that's bad, right? Because we limit the potential of that capital that we have there. On experience, it's, to be completely honest with you all, is a mess. It's a mess for everyone. It's a mess for the user. It's a mess for the developers. It's a mess for the business that try to implement such solutions. Talking about the users itself, there are two angles we can see that on the user perspective. One is if I have a token, if I have an asset, not even token, but asset on one network, and I need to use this asset in another network, it's a huge effort to get that done. I either get luck that my wallet support that other network that I want to use my asset, or I will need to execute 20 steps to get that done. Create a new account, create a new wallet, find a bridge, trust on that bridge, execute the bridging, and then somehow use that token, if that's even possible, because in some cases that bridging is not even created, so you can't achieve that. But even on a user experience perspective, some wallets, they like a very simple case. Some wallets or some networks, sorry, they have different ways to deal with the recovery of the account, for example. So some networks, they support only passphrases. Some networks, they require or they allow you to do with passkeys. Some wallets, they have an email recovery flow. So at the end, the way I interact with those networks and with the wallets or the platform itself, will be very different one from the other. So the user needs to learn, needs to understand the difference, and then needs to use that specific platform. It's bad, right? It's very inconsistent from a user perspective. So this demands lots of effort to get that done. In the development perspective, similar experience. If I want to integrate with one network, with one DLT, I need to understand the specifics about DLT because each DLT has specifics, either terms or features or standards that we need to be aware of. Then I need to understand the ecosystem because I need to understand if there is any SDK or library that I can leverage to do the integration that I need. And then I need to do the integration itself, which is another challenge itself, because maybe we don't have a good documentation, maybe we don't have a good demo, maybe we don't have a sample. So lots of effort to get that done across different chains. And this just adds for the business, right? For the business, if I, as a business owner, want to deliver a solution integrated to a blockchain or to multiple blockchains, I'll need to get all of those changes and somehow solve those, right? To make that transparent to the user and somehow make that as easy as possible for the development team who'll be implementing that. And we're not even talking about the governance behind all of that, because as we have different networks dealing with different features in different ways, the way I create the governance for my specific business case will be very different from one side to the other. So at the end, I have siloed rules, and I might have compliance gaps, the things that I'm implementing. And adding to this, we're now dealing with enterprise needs, right? Which is a great thing for our market, for our ecosystem, right? So now we are seeing a huge adoption of enterprises to the ecosystem in many ways, but I'll focus just in one here. But enterprises, they might have tokenized assets on a private network or permission network to be invoice, commodity, credit, whatever, right? And we are seeing now a need for the enterprise to connect those tokens or those assets with the secondary market, because it's on the secondary market that liquidity exists in the public chain, of course. And if we don't create this layer that connect those two words can't speak. It is impossible, right? So we also have to consider that to this ecosystem that's fragmented already. So at the end, interoperability as a concept is what allows us to deliver compliance and liquidity to this ecosystem, but at the same time, delivering that in a manner that people can trust and access those things. So let's continue going deeper into that direction, and let me try to give you all a ecosystem landscape or overview about what we have out there. And one important parenthesis before we continue here. My point here is not to point to one direction or point to one solution or make comparison. It's the opposite of that. It's try to expand everyone's mind about the different types of solutions we have out there, and for people to understand that it's a matter to understand which of those solutions fits better what you're trying to deliver. So it's trying to pick the right tool and not try to fit the tool into your solution. And such communities such as LFDT, like open source communities, are key to this conversation, because for the interoperability, we don't have a standard yet. We have many proposals, we have many good discussions happening, but we're still building the foundations and the standards for interoperability. And those open source communities are the space where those standards are being built and can be built, because usually on those open source communities, and such as this one, we have companies interacting with each others with different perspectives, different pain points, different learnings. So they usually exchange those learnings to then have good discussions in an organized way, and that's why it's important to go with a good open source community, of course, to then define the standards that anyone can leverage from. And the standard that allow us to move value in a safe way cross we'll talk about this, but cross systems, right? Not only cross chains. And when we're talking about interoperability, there are many angles we can tackle that. So I'll focus on three main ones for us to try to expand our minds and start this conversation about this topic. The first angle is about the complexity of the interoperability we're trying to build. I will not go deep on those concepts today. I will just highlight it But hopefully, again, we can continue this conversation, or you can also watch our recording from last year where we explain those concepts a little bit deeper. But the first angle is the type of interoperability we are trying to make, right? There is this concept called the P levels for potentiality. So the P1 is the more simple one. So we are trying to interop a logic between two smart contracts. So same as subnetwork, network, and DLT. The second level is the P2, where we are trying to interop between two different protocols, but still within the same network and protocol. So for example, I'm trying to interop between ERC20 and ERC721. So a token and an NFT on the Ethereum network. The third level is the P3. So I'm trying to interop between the same or within the same DLT protocol, but on different networks. So I'm trying to interrupt between layer 1 and layer 2s, for example, right? And the last one, and this is the most hard one, is trying to interrupt between two different DLTs. And the complexity is going higher and higher and higher because the difference start to become bigger also, right? So I'll talk only about the last one, the P4. But if you're talking about two different DLTs, the way they implement something might be different, the interfaces might be different, and even some features might not be available on both sides. So to give you a real example, imagine that you're trying to interop between two networks, but one network supports smart contract and the other network doesn't. So how we interop a smart contract to a classic token, right? So there is really good challenge here, depending on the level of complexity you're trying to deliver. The second angle we can tackle this is about compatibility. And there's also a concept behind of it, the C levels for it. And simplifying a lot, there are three levels for the compatibility. The first one going bottom to up. The first one is we need to make sure that the two systems are speaking the same language. So I need to somehow create an interface between the two systems. The second level is, okay, we not only speak the same level now, but we agree on the rules, right? On how we'll be working, playing together. Agreements, goals, some business rules, and so forth. And the third level is, okay, we not only speak the same language, we're playing the same rules, but we're playing under the same legal frame, like legally recognized framing. So one example here is imagine that we need to do KYC for one specific part of your application. If you are on one network, you need to make sure that the second network guarantees the same thing in terms of KYC as the first one. Or if they don't, you need to make sure that you create this layer to make sure that happens. The second thing we need to consider is what we are trying to interrupt. I'm simplifying. I'm simplifying a lot here. So again, hopefully we can expand this conversation later. But the first thing we might be trying to interrupt is data, right? So I'm trying to copy data from one DLT to another. So I have one information in one smart contract, and I want to copy that information to a different smart contract on a different network, right? On a different blockchain. This is the most simple use case. Maybe just before that, there's the messaging, then data, then the things to be speaking. The second is I want to transfer one asset from one DLT to another. This is usually done by locking the asset on the original network, minting on the target network or blockchain. And by doing that, you have a representation of the token on the target blockchain. For example, I have a USDC on the Stellar network, and I want to have I want to transfer that to Polygon. So I lock from a specific pool a specific certain amount of USDC here on the Stellar network. I mint a representation of the token of that USDC token on the Polygon network, and then I transfer that representation to the user wallet so that he or she can use wherever they want. And the last is asset exchange. So I don't want to transfer one asset from one network or the other. I want to swap one asset from one network to the other. So imagine that we have, let's go back to the USDC example. We have USDC on the Stellar network, and we want to swap that USDC for a carbon credit token on a Bezo network. So we need to create this layer that will swap those two tokens. And it's important for that to be atomic transaction, right? Meaning if something failed, we need to be able to roll back the entire transaction. Otherwise, the original value will be lost, right? So, and we cannot allow that to happen whatsoever. And I'll focus on this latter or on these last two examples about the asset transfer and asset exchange, and to make sure that I was completely transparent and clear about that. Trying to summarize asset transfer, we move some asset between chains. This is the same asset and same owner, right? So we're talking about the same asset on the both chains. The way we achieve that is usually with locking and minting. That means that we create a fragmented liquidity, right? This is a concept we'll speak later, but to achieve that, we need to create what we call wrap token, right? So we need to have a token wrapped on the target network. So at the end, we have a fragmented liquidity because we will have a token almost duplicated on different networks. And again, that's not a problem. It's just a different way to achieve it. With the asset exchange, we are swapping different tokens on the different chains. That means we're talking about different assets and different owners. We need to achieve that with atomic swap. There is other ways we can achieve, like interchain sprawl and a few other things, but mainly with atomic swap. And that means we have a unified liquidity, meaning the liquidity of the token is unique. We don't have duplication of that token living in other places. And the key here is it's not about a single bridge that will solve everything. Interoperability currently is very diverse. There are many solutions out there. There are many ways to tackle those challenges that I just mentioned. And each has a unique strength. It has a unique way to solve those problems. And we should leverage those strengths to make sure we are implementing that on the best possible way and is not limiting or creating a technical debt or something. So I'll highlight three players on the market on how we can achieve that. But again, my goal here is not to focus on these three, but just to start showcasing the many different angles and perspectives those companies and tools and solutions are presenting to the market or presenting to us on how can we solve those challenges. The first one is the Hyperledger Cacti, incredible open source interoperability framework under the LFDT umbrella. It's a composable and pluggable architecture, meaning you can take what you want and then compose that on the best way to build the use case you're trying to leverage. They have a plugin-based architecture. I will talk about this later, but basically they have what they call connectors to allow the framework to talk to the ledgers. And currently they have connectors for Bezo, Fabric, Stellar, Blitz, Polkadot also, and a bunch of others. So you can connect already with a bunch of network on the market or ledgers on the market. And at the end, what the framework allow you to do is cross-ledger transactions and data flow. So not only transactions, but also flow data across these chains without a central intermediary. So you can create that without having the need for a central player, a central stakeholder. And Cacti proves that interop can be done in an open way, in an auditable way, and following the standards. That's very good about the Cacti, as Cacti is evolving based on community discussions. They are implementing lots of these market standards and industry standards into the framework. And at the end, we don't have a black box, right? We know what's happening there. I mentioned about the webinar we did last year. On the webinar, we present the Stellar connector. So Cheesecake Labs, we contributed by adding the Stellar connector to Cacti. So now anyone using Cacti can also interop with the Stellar ledger. So this is live and available for everyone to use. And fun fact, after this talk at 8 a.m. PT, we have a workshop on Cacti. They will go way more deeper than I was here. So going on the technical aspects, how to use, how to integrate the architecture, building the connectors. So this is Stellar connector I just mentioned. They will talk about like how to build new connectors for the ecosystem. So I highly recommend anyone interested on using Cacti can watch this workshop to get more details, either live here or see the recording later, or also watch our recording from last year. So the webinar we did, we also went deeper on Cacti. Another great player on the market is Layer Zero. Massive adoption, massive ecosystem. They have proven the liquidity and the throughput of the protocol. Sorry, they have proprietary governance and central components somehow. Again, the goal here is not to go too technical, but they work with a very cool concept about ultralight node that has some on-chain and off-chain aspects for connection and also relaying the information with relayers and oracles. They are powering already dozens of DeFi apps, NFTs, gaming, wallets. So Layer Zero proves that a protocol, one is that the demand is real, right? We have many solutions demanding to go cross chains and interop, as we have many apps relying on Layer Zero to do this integration, and that a protocol can scale, right? That we can leverage a protocol for enterprise needs or something like that. Another very interesting player in the market is VIA Labs. VIA Lab is delivering a bridgeless cross-chain communication infrastructure. They already support 130 plus networks. They work with atomic burn and mint logic, ensuring that we have consistent, right, between the state and also the supply across the chains. And they have a very interesting approach on connecting the Web3 with Web2. So they make, or they allow us to make APIs, database, and even AI models available to smart contracts or available to talk to smart contracts. And on two sides, meaning we can either extract information, but also trigger information on those Web2 solutions. And they have done that, or they have created this infrastructure in focus on privacy, meaning enterprises can leverage from that to integrate data, to create private oracles, or even like considering the moment that we are, to integrate with any AI-powered automation that they have. So VIA Labs illustrates very good where the industry is heading and leading to. Interoperability is still a discussion about making two networks, or sorry, two DLTs, two blockchains to connect and to talk. But it's even broader than that. Is understand how can we connect systems? How can we connect Web2 and Web3? Now that we understood, okay, the why interoperability matters. We understood that we have different ways we can tackle interoperability, and there are many players on the market that are helping us solve this challenge in different ways. Let's talk about, okay, what can we achieve with interoperability, right? So I have a few use cases here that I have highlighted to present to you all. I made those use cases anonymous, meaning it doesn't have a client name or something here, but many of those we have implemented at Cheesecake already, so they are live and in production. So if anyone has any questions or want to extend this conversation later, let me know, and we can definitely continue the conversation later. So the first one is the one that I touched already briefly, but this is something that we are seeing increasing in demand lots. As enterprises, usually they have these permission network, Fabric network, a Bezu network, where they are tokenizing already some specific assets. So let's pick one, for example, imagine that I am an enterprise company and I want to tokenize, or I am tokenizing already an invoice from my company on a private network, to be Bezu network, for example. What we can do is we can mirror that tokenized invoice on a public network for financing, for example, or factoring, or whatever that specific use case we are trying to achieve. And by doing that, by mirroring that invoice will be available on the public network for them to explore. Could be either the secondary market, or it could be even a payment with a secondary with a public token. And we can even go extra mile here. So when this invoice gets paid on the public network, the information can flow back to the Bezu network. And then on the Bezu network, we can trigger a specific workflow for the enterprise. I don't know, maybe updating ERP or updating a financial system or something, right? That can all be done with this interoperability layer, right? With this tool we'll be putting that will connect my Bezu network to a public network, be Stellar or any other network on the market. The second case, it's about stablecoins. Stablecoins is huge for us right now, right? And for us, I mean, for the community, for the market, stablecoins is unlocking the mass adoption. Stablecoin is allowing us to achieve use cases incredible, right? Connected to the public, to the general market or general people. But stablecoins, considering that we are going mass adoption, we have this challenge, right? So for the user, it doesn't really matter if that stablecoin is on the network X or network Y. It matters that I want to use that stablecoin, right? I want to use that money. Similar to how we experience on the real world, right? So if I have a dollar, I want to be able to use this dollar here in the United States, in Brazil, in Europe, or wherever location I am. So how can that be achieved? Currently, most of the stablecoin solutions, they are following that wrap solution that I mentioned, meaning they are locking a portion of that liquidity on the main network that stablecoin is launched or is live, and creating a representation of the stablecoin on the another network. But that's called the issues that I mentioned, right? So the liquidity becomes scattered. It's hard to create a governance around that token. Um, and at the end, you got dependent of the bridging, right? So the bridge become a security issue into all of this, because as the bridge becomes also almost like the custody, the entity who custody that asset for you. So one way for us to solve that is the thing that I mentioned. Instead of working with wrap tokens, we can work with interop cross-chain tokens. Instead of locking a token, we'll be burning a token and then creating or minting that token on the different network. That guarantees that the supply and liquidity is the same no matter the network, right? As this is a very could be a very complex subject, I just put it on the table for us to compare again both and make sure that's clear. So when we talk about wrap token, we're talking mainly about locking and minting on different networks, right? So I lock on the original network, mint on the destination representation of that token. With the native, we usually burn on the original network and mint not a representation but a token on the destination network. The custody thing that I mentioned. With a wrap token, we usually depend, there are other ways we can solve that, but mainly we depend on the bridge to custody that specific mechanism, right? So usually the bridge will lock those assets and release those assets when need. With the native tokens, that's usually, it's more dependent on the protocol, right? Not many on like a third party, either system or entity to hold that asset. In terms of supply model, with the wrap token, we need to duplicate that token. Even though it's a representation, we need to duplicate the token. With the native cross-chain, we have a unified supply independent on the chain. Security, we have this thing to consider that with the wrap token, we are depending on the bridge somehow for the security, and with the native, we are more depending on the protocol. And as a consequence, the liquidity on the wrap is fragmented, on the native is more unified. And there is no better or worse, to be fully honest. It really depends on the use case. So here is just to highlight the difference between one and the other. It's not saying that one is better than the other, because one adds more complexity. So anyway, there are things to consider, and there is no single solution for all things we need to implement or want to implement. Another thing that we're seeing, especially this year, and we're also seeing for next year to continue evolving in terms of discussion, is privacy and identity. This is another challenge right now, right? Because if a user KYC on one specific network, that KYC usually lives on that network, right? So it's very hard for us to reuse that KYC on a different network. So the idea here is for us to create almost like a accredited provider that will do this KYC. And of course, we'll do that on chain so we can validate, we have proofs and all of that. But that KYC done with the accredited provider, usually using a DID or VC standard, it can be reused cross chains. So smart contracts can verify that credential exists and has proofs, and we can validate using any algorithm or specific implementation we want to apply there. And we can even go higher on this or go deeper than that. We can also allow the user to start controlling their data in terms of what kind of data I want to expose to what kind of provider. So maybe with one provider, I want to expose just my name, for example, to other, I want to provide my credit score and so forth, right? So user can control more. If we create this layer where we can make the QAC of the user a portable identity with proofs that, of course, need to be safe. So the standard we'll be using there really matters and matters a lot. But this is another way where interoperability can solve, and it is solving already, this issue and challenge about identity and at the end compliance somehow, right? Lastly, but not less important, enterprises and even like any company, right? We do have lots of data locked into systems, ERP, CRM, APIs. And when we create on-chain applications, it's very hard for us to extract information from those, I'll call legacy, but actually it's other systems. And as I mentioned before, on the two sides, right? Not only extract data, but how can I input data from my on-chain application? So one example, imagine that a contract is like a smart contract needs to read a payment or shipping status from an API. And the way we can achieve that is with private oracles, API gateways, and then we can add some validation layers there to make sure that that's either private and also secure. But a smart contract can read that information on the API, then the information will be pushed to the on-chain for execution. And as I mentioned, we can even go back to the final piece or to the extra mile, where when something happens on-chain, the bridge can listen to that and then look back to the enterprise system to either automate integration with any internal system or similar. That's possible and happening already. Lots of challenge for that because of privacy, because of other things. But that's, again, that's another good challenge and good goal for the interoperability to solve. All of those three methods that I mentioned, Cacti, Layer Zero, VIA Labs, they, for example, solve or allow us to achieve such thing as this last use case. So hope with all of these, I was able to showcase there are different patterns for interoperability, right? Unified liquidity, portable identity, data integration, private settlement, and sometimes I need to worry more or I want to achieve more automation, right? Or maybe I need more, my application demands more liquidity, or maybe I need to be more careful about compliance. And there is no single solution to tackle all of that, right? You need to understand what you're trying to achieve, understand the pattern, and then considering these, build your architecture, and then selecting the best tool to help you achieve all of that. And I want to now present a real use case. This use case is a demo we did making one asset interop between Stellar, one asset on the Stellar network and to the Bezo network. And this is good because this is live, meaning it's live on the Cacti environment, in the Cacti ecosystem. While implementing the connector last year, we also implement a demo that anyone can use and take a look. It's on the code that anyone can take a look. Could be used as a sample to implement interoperability, can be used to get more details on how this is done. But this is implemented. So what we're trying to achieve. Alice wants to send some funds from her Stellar account to her friend Charlie in the business network. Pretty simple use case, right? How can that be achieved? So Alice will send the funds to a bridge service account in Stellar. This bridge service is powered by Cacti. So we have a Cacti infrastructure and service running behind the scenes. The bridge will lock the funds and generate a unique reference, a unique footprint. And this is huge. This is, I'll not go deep on this, but we have a footprint that we can validate, is all chain. So there are layers of validation here to make sure that that happen. At any given moment, Alice will signal that she wants to move this crowd funds to her Bezo account, to the bridge, right? The bridge has the collateral safely stored on the Stellar network, right? So that amount is locked there. So the bridge will now issue a representation of those funds on the Bezo network and send that fund to Alice on the Bezo network. Now Alice has those funds on the Bezo network and she can send to Charlie on Bezo also. And this is not the end. while we have the representation, while the representation token still exists on the Bezos network, the scaled amount will remain locked on the Stellar. But if Charles wants to move back those funds to Stellar, he or whoever holds those assets now can do this by doing the same approach. Charlie can burn those funds on the Bezos network by moving those funds to the Bridge network, and then moving, which at the end will lock those funds on the Stellar network. Make that more visual. This is like the demo application. So here, Alice just scrawled or sent to the bridge 250 tokens, and this is real and live. This is happening on chain on both Stellar and Bezos network. Now that Alice has those funds locked on the bridge, she can signal to the bridge that she wants to send those funds to her Bezos wallet on the Bezos network, of course. And then with that done, the bridge behind the scenes will keep the Stellar assets locked and will mint a representation of those tokens on the Bezos network. And then Alice will receive those tokens on her Bezos wallet. Now that Alice has those tokens on the Bezos network, she can now transfer to any Bezos wallet, in this case to Charlie wallet. And now that Charlie has those tokens, he can do the same on the Bezos network. So he can scroll amount of those tokens to the bridge on the Bezos network and signal to the bridge to bridge back to Stellar. So the bridge will burn those assets on the Bezos network and will unlock those assets on the Stellar network. So this is a very simple but powerful use cases, and this was all implemented with Cacti. Again, open source for anyone to use and build upon. Now trying to somehow summarize and compile everything that I mentioned so far. Hopefully with all of this, it becomes clear to you that interoperability isn't something that you buy, like a product that you buy or a service that you go on a website and say, I want my product to be interop. It's a practice that you need to plan and build since the foundations of your product, or at least make sure you're building the architecture for that interoperability before you decide to include on your product. And try to highlight 4 things that I believe are the most important when you start to considering interop to your solution. The first is start with open standards. Could be talk to the community, could be select open source framework, could be understand the standards out there. There are many ways for you to start there. But usually those open standards, they are the consequence of long and good discussions between multiple perspectives, and at the end, multiple learnings, right? And they have already like transparency, auditability, and long-term governance building on those open standards. And usually open standards, they outlive individual products, meaning they are the foundation of everything. Usually the standards that we have right now, they start on those open discussions. The second thing is start small. If you want to transfer a token between 2 networks, start by messaging between the two networks. Starting by generate proofs on both sides and validate those proofs on both sides. Exchange our data between the 2 networks, and then you can think on transfer assets. And this might sound that you will lose velocity, but it's the opposite of that. As we'll be validating at every step, we'll be able to adjust our architecture, to adjust our governance, because we'll always face one, I won't say a blocker, but we'll face a challenge that we need to overcome. And if we start to build the whole solution right from the beginning, it might happen that you face those issues while building the final solution, then you need to rebuild it all, or you will start with technical debts. So start with small steps, or at least go step by step by validating a prototype as fast and as early as you can. Do not try to fit the tool into your use case. Understand what the business needs, understand what you need to build on the product, on the product, understand the user experience you want to deliver, build the architecture to deliver that, and then try to find the best tool to achieve that. Because might be Cacti in layer 0, might be 3 solutions together to achieve. So the tool is a tool. It's something to help us achieve something better and faster, and not the opposite, right? And collaborate with the ecosystem. As I mentioned before, those standards are not defined yet. So every day we have learnings, we have new standards, we have new definitions being made, or at least good discussions being made. So be part of the community. I keep highlighting LFDT because like 2 years ago when we joined the community, we got impressed on the level of discussions and level of collaboration that this group has. To build the Stellar connector, that was only possible because we joined the working groups, we joined the calls on one specific days that the team was there to discuss. We had this joint effort with other people based on learnings that they had before. Again, those communities, they can be a shortcut to you, can help you achieve something better and faster. And you can be part of the definitions of those standards, right? So this is also very good for our company. So collaborate through the ecosystem and be part of those ecosystems. To wrap up and open the conversation, even though I mentioned different challenges, different ways to implement, there is one single thing in common to all of that. At the end, what we are trying to achieve with interoperability is we want to move value or information cross-system in a trustful and seamless way, right? That's it, as simple as that. But some solutions or application or even companies might want to prioritize or need to prioritize privacy. Others need to integrate. Others demand liquidity or speed. Others want to start with openness and governance. So it's important for you to understand what you're trying to build, understand the pattern, understand the context, build the architecture, and then try to adopt or build, in this case, a standard that can help you scale based on that specific need. Interoperability isn't about like a single network to rule them all or a single solution to rule them all. It's about connecting those words. And those words, they have their diversity, they have their specific either ethos or features, and that's what make our ecosystem so good, right? Because then we have multiple tools solving different problems. So let's use, but of course, let's use them in a secure, efficient, and if possible, open way, so that we can grow this ecosystem even more. And this is what we believe at Cheesecake. We believe in building open bridges and not closed walls. So that's why we try to contribute the best as we can with the community, either by helping companies build those solutions or even contributing to those open source projects when we can. If you have any question, feel free to ask. But then last thing on my side is hopefully these, again, this was not a technical call. We can go deeper and we should go deeper. But it was more for us to open our minds and see the possibilities, see the challenge, see the ways we can solve it, see the either services or tools or companies who are helping us solve those challenges on the market. But it's the beginning of a conversation that hopefully I can continue with you all. So feel free to reach out me on an email or LinkedIn or any platform for us to continue this conversation. We have built many solutions that demand interoperability. We face many challenges. So hopefully we can also either help you implement those solutions or even just to share those learnings so that we can continue growing the interoperability ecosystem in a safe way. Thanks so much.
Okay, thank you very much, Doug. Very informative presentation. Thanks for that. We did have two questions in the chat. One from Peter, a little bit up if you see, and also one from Carm. And before we go there, let me just ask you, Peter or Carm, would you like to go off mute and ask questions directly? Otherwise, Doug can also address it like that, I believe. Okay. Well, if you would like to go on later on, you can just raise your hand. Would you like to take those, Doug?
For sure. So let me go from the beginning. What are the technical challenges with Web 2.5? Maybe I'll need to have more context to maybe be assertive with this answer, but not sure if you're talking about integrating like Web 2 and Web 3. You're talking about more technical challenges about implementing these on the Web 2 perspective or Web 2 perspective. But the main challenge we face here is I'll tackle that on the angle that connecting Web2 to Web3, right? So maybe making some data available on a Web3 Web2 data available on a Web3 environment, and a Web3 environment trying to trigger a Web2 environment, Web2 either API or ecosystem. And there are many challenges, right? The first one that I can remember from top of mind is, of course, privacy, right? So how can you make sure the private data doesn't flow to a public ecosystem, and then you expose something that you don't want to expose? And could be an endless discussion. There are many ways we can solve that, like private articles and a few other things. But also the data itself that flows to the public, maybe we need to, for example, encrypt the data so that the data doesn't be public exposed. Or maybe we need to filter the data. So maybe we need to process the data between the Web2 and Web3. And that can be done with the interoperability layer. The second thing could be about even cost, right? If you'll be replicating data from Web2 to Web3, you need to consider that into your product and model. And of course, the third point is how you be connecting, because again, there is no single standard. So if you want to connect your, I don't know, Salesforce API with your smart contract, you probably need to either create a custom smart contract or creating a custom connection between Salesforce and an API that like almost like an oracle or a validation layer that will allow you to trigger that. So how to achieve that right now is not as seamless as it could be. So again, it can go many directions, but there are many challenges about like privacy, cost, and also ways to implement a solution that currently, again, as we don't have a single standard, and maybe we shouldn't, uh, you need to implement that by yourselves in some cases. So I hope that clears. Will the recorded video available for us? Yeah, for sure. This will be recorded. Thanks so much, Thomas. Guidelines from HIPAA or other legislations for compliance regarding identity access. For sure. One is I'll call the legacy rules, right, or legislations. So PII, personal information that cannot be stored in some ways. If we're talking about personal information, people should be able to uh, the general law of data. People need to be able to remove their data at some point. But as we're talking about blockchain, we can never erase data, right? Or we should create a mechanism that allows users to do that. Maybe a smart contract that can be editable later, that we can remove that data. But even though that will be started on the previous node. So anyway, lots of challenge related to that, just to be able we are compliant with the current rules. But of course, the legislation is still evolving for the blockchain itself, right? As we now have a new technology, a new solution, new legislations are being created for that ecosystem. And depends on the market, depends on the country, depends on even the solution you're trying to build. Like if you're talking about health industry, for example, they are much more regulated than others. Same for financial. So I would say for you to first understand like the general compliance rules you need to apply no matter the technology you're talking about, and you need to make sure that you are compliant to those, right? Because again, you need to. The second is maybe the legislation will evolve a little bit for the blockchain ecosystem, because this is evolving like every month, every year, like with the stable coins recently is a good example, right? To see if you have a way you can implement that or improve the implementation for blockchain itself. And then at the end, you probably need to do that, right? To my previous point, maybe implement a different smart contract to be able to handle that specific compliance guideline or something that you're trying to achieve. Great. I'll try to summarize in one phrase. So hopefully I made myself clear. But again, we should continue this conversation. So feel free to reach out to me, and hopefully we can have a talk about this later also.
Great. Thank you very much, Doug. So I was just checking the questions on YouTube and LinkedIn Live. Doesn't seem we have anything there right now. But we do have time for one last question if somebody would like to speak up. Going once, going twice. Okay. Well, thank you very much, Doug, for this great presentation. And for those of you watching later, because I know that often not everybody can join on time for the webinar, and if you're watching the recording, feel free to reach out to Doug of the through the details that he shared, as well as through our Discord channel, and we can also connect you with him and other people from Cheesecake Labs. All right. Doug, thank you again so much. I think it was really a great talk. And thank you everybody for joining and for your questions. And thank you everybody later watching this recording on our webinar library or on the YouTube channel. Now, before we go, just a quick wrap up. So I would like to invite you to look at our events page for the following webinars, as well as other events. So we post a lot of both online and in-person events there, and you're welcome to sign up for all of them. Please visit our meetup page. So one of the meetups that Doug mentioned, and it's starting in a few minutes, will be the Cacti workshop, and you could find it there. But there are several other meetups, both online and in person, that you can join via the meetup page. Please visit our Discord channel. There's a lot of real-time interaction there to get information about our projects and any support that you need. And for the corporate, if you're interested in becoming a corporate members, feel free to explore our membership benefits. Contact us, and we're happy to jump on a call with you and share that as well. Okay, thank you again for watching, and everybody for joining, and as well, Doug, for your great talk. And see you next time.